Righto, tally-ho. Now, I really want to know what phone you guys use. Leave it down there in the comments, what phone you use. Do you like it? Do you hate it? I would also like to know if you're rocking an older phone or you got a hand-me-down or whatever. If money was unlimited, what phone you would get next. I really want to know that. Please put it down there in the comments so I could just get an idea what people are using and whether they like it or not. So, without further ado, let's get into this. Today I'm going to be discussing what I think is the best smartphone of 2017, and it come down to two: the iPhone 10 and the Google Pixel 2, the XL or the normal one, doesn't matter, whichever one suits you. They're both pretty much the same smartphones other than the display. I will give honorable mentions to the OnePlus 5T, and I think as far as bang for buck goes and just all around value and just it punches well above its weight. It's pretty much 99% of what these other flagship smartphones are. The camera has just had a big update with the OnePlus 5T, and it is so close, and it's just half the price. Well, certainly of the iPhone at least. So I think if you're talking value, bang for buck, I think that could easily be the best phone of the year. And if you want to check out a review on that, go check out my friend from AMD Tech, Andrew. He has a great review on the OnePlus 5T. He's a big rap for it too. But ultimately, I come to the conclusion that it's either out the iPhone 10 or the Pixel 2. Now, why didn't I include any Samsung Note or Galaxy 8 Plus? And that's because I was a Samsung 7 Edge owner, and I did love that phone. But you've got to just eliminate phones on your own personal needs and preferences and what you think is better. And the problem with the Samsung products, either the Note or the 8 Plus, in Australia we get the Exynos version, and I don't want an Exynos version. I would much prefer the Snapdragon. I don't like TouchWiz. I never have. I know you can put a launcher on it, but it's not the same. You know, even in the menus, you're always going to have TouchWiz there at some point. And more importantly for me personally, this is, and for you it may be different, but the updates for Samsung phones are atrocious. Like, they take 10 years to update their phones. Like, we're talking months. We're not talking weeks or maybe a month or 6 weeks, 8 weeks. We're talking like 3 to 6 months. Like, it takes a hell of a long time for Samsung to upgrade their software, and that is the biggest sticking point for me. So I had to eliminate it just because of those reasons. Those reasons may not be reasons you care about. If Samsung did fix those things and I could get the Snapdragon version here in Australia, it'd definitely be right up there contending with the iPhone 10 and the Pixel 2. And apologies also to stuff like the Huawei phones and stuff like that. I do keep my eye on them, but there's one or two things here or there that are just, even the LG phones, just, they're great phones, don't get me wrong, but there's just something here or there that just makes me not want to buy them over these two phones I have here. So which one's better out of these two? I think when it comes to design, it's going to be personal preference, but I think they're both premium design there. The Pixel looks better for me from the back, and from the front I think the iPhone 10 looks better. Overall, I'd say the iPhone 10 is just a bit more premium. It does cost a hell of a lot more too, but it does feel more premium overall. Although I love the all-white Pixel phone, and I do love how it breaks up the back with that sort of white panel, white on white. It looks really good, but I'd just say the iPhone 10 just feels a little bit more expensive. When it comes to performance, you won't notice a difference between the two in terms of just daily real-world use, just flicking through apps and stuff, but there is no doubt that the iPhone 10 is more powerful, has more powerful processor. It is a more powerful phone overall. You'll notice that the apps do launch a little bit faster, the games are a little bit smoother. Overall, it is just more powerful, but I'll just tell you one thing now. It's been like years, like at least 2 or 3 years, where just every smartphone has good processing power and it's fast enough for me. So it's a moot point for me which one is faster or more powerful. So in terms of specs and just which one's more powerful, it doesn't really matter to me, but the iPhone does have performance edge. Now, when it comes to the cameras, this is very hard to decide between the two, because if you're just talking about image quality, the Pixel does have the best camera. Also, the Pixel has much better video stabilization and just better low light performance with images and better stabilization with images as well. So you think, well, it must have a better camera, but it's not that simple, because the iPhone 10 has 2 focal lengths, has optical image stabilization on both focal lengths, so you get it on the telephoto lens as well. The portrait mode works better on the back camera with the iPhone. The portrait mode works better with the front-facing camera on the Pixel. Overall, I would have to say that the iPhone X does have a slightly better camera overall. When you consider the extra focal length, it can do, 4K 60 frames per second, 1080p at 120 frames per second. It does have extra features, and me being really into photography, those features are really handy to me. And just even something simple like time-lapse. I don't know why the Google camera does not have time-lapse. Anyway, they are both great cameras. Image quality is slightly better on the Pixel, but overall I do think the iPhone X has the better camera. In terms of value, well, the Pixel is much better value. The iPhone X is just an absolute rip-off. It's just abhorrent, the prices they're charging for phones these days, and I can't justify it at all when you consider that the OnePlus 5T is like half the price and it's like 99% of the phone. The Pixel is cheaper, so it is a better value. Although when you come to display, I think this is where you see the biggest difference between these two phones. The front of the phone on the Pixel does look a little bit sort of classic, or you could say looks a little outdated, but it does have those front-facing speakers that are phenomenal. But overall, when you look at both displays, you do have that notch on the iPhone, but if you just look at both these phones' displays, there's only one winner here. The iPhone does have the better display, wider color gamut, more accurate, just punches more. It is just the better display, HDR. That is the biggest difference between these phones. The iPhone X does have a significantly better display. Now, the Pixel's display isn't bad, I'm not saying that, but the iPhone X's display is just out of this world, although it is very small. So if you get the Pixel XL, you get a much larger phone. Now, I've said before that the iPhone 8 Plus is the best iPhone, and yes, I still do agree. For me, it is the best iPhone because it has a larger screen, it has better battery life, and it has Touch ID, which works a hell of a lot better than Face ID. I can guarantee you one thing right now. When you use an iPhone X, especially if you use sunglasses or you're out in the sun, you will learn how to punch in your key code very fast because you're going to be doing it quite a lot. This needs another way to get in the phone, this iPhone X. This Face ID, it works most of the time, but there's going to be times it's really going to annoy you, especially outside, sunglasses, at just the most inappropriate time when you just want to get into your phone really quick. You're going to get that key code and it just annoys the hell out of me. I want some other way to get in. But other than those sort of 3 things that are more personally suited to me, the bigger display, the better battery life, and Touch ID, other than those 3 things, the iPhone X is still the better phone over the iPhone 8 Plus. In terms of software between the Pixel and the iPhone X, well, that's just going to be personal preference. I do prefer Android just because it's so customizable. Android Oreo, it just has the much better search. It integrates with all your Google stuff a lot better, which I do have a lot of Google stuff, and the Google stuff doesn't work that well on the iPhone X compared to what it does on the Pixel, obviously. So personal preference, I do like Android better, but you're going to have your own personal preference, so I guess I'm just going to call that a draw when it comes to user interface. But overall, which one do I think is the best phone of 2017? And I think it's the iPhone X. Yeah, I'm sorry to say it. I'm an Android boy at heart, but I think this one is the 2017 best phone. But I'd really like to know what you guys think is the best phone in 2017. Put it down there in the comments. If I recommend a phone, I always recommend the 5T just because of its price point. So thanks guys for watching. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you're new around here, please subscribe. And until next time guys, tally ho. today I'm going to be reviewing the iPhone X, and I'm going to tell you why you probably should wait until the next generation of the iPhone X. There are a lot of things to love about this phone, but there are a few deal breakers, especially for me. I'm not saying they will be deal breakers for you. I'll get onto those things later. I'm going to answer FAQs and tell you things that I think other reviewers glossed over or didn't mention at all, or just omitted for whatever reason, whether it's their Apple lovers or whatever, I don't know. Now, there's no denying this is the sexiest product out at the moment. This is the hottest thing in tech. That's just how it is. Apple, on the most part, have smashed this for 6. There are a lot of great things about this phone. If you look at the last few iPhones, they've just been iteration, boring, just safe. Yeah, they worked. They were dependable, reliable. But the Android phones were just that much more exciting. They had more features, they just looked better, and they just had more going for it. Now, this is the first iPhone that I think is into the modern age now. It has caught up with pretty much everything Android has. No, OLED screens are not new. Wireless charging's not new, face recognition's not new, bezel-less phones is not new. So in some sense, welcome to the modern world, Apple iPhone users. This is what it's been like on Android for a while. Nevertheless, before I get into the negatives, I want to talk about the things I love. Now, this thing is sexy. It is sexy. I so much want it to be my daily driver. Now, I've been using the iPhone 7 Plus, the red one, and now I'm using the iPhone 8 Plus, and now I'm deciding which one should I keep, the iPhone 10 or X. I don't care what Apple call it, I'm calling it the X. And I'm just trying to decide which one am I going to keep, the iPhone X or the 8 Plus. I'm still not 100% decided, but I probably will keep the 8 Plus because I do think it has a lot of advantages. Now, the iPhone 10, it is sexy, hot, the hottest thing out there, no doubt about it. It is beautiful. And has anyone actually noticed that the silver model, when the screen is off, it actually looks like the original iPhone with that chrome trim around it? It definitely looks like the original iPhone. That is not a mistake. That is not a coincidence. That is paying homage to the original iPhone. And you can tell the love Apple have put into this. The last like 4 or 5 phones, they've just been iterations. I didn't feel the love in them. They were just like, oh, what can we put out there and just gobble up some more money? We'll just upgrade this little bit here, a little bit there. And yeah, people will upgrade and pay for it because it's Apple. This thing here is not an iteration. This thing here, you can feel the love. You can tell it meant a lot to Apple, and for the most part, they've killed it. First of all, I cannot do an iPhone review without talking about price. It is over the top for price. It's getting ridiculous, the price of phones at the moment. I feel like it's a phone for rich people now. Like, I don't know how I feel about it, but there's one thing you can say with the Apple phones. You do get most of your money back. They have the highest resale value. That's just a fact. I sold my 7 Plus for $1,100 and it cost me $1,420 here in Australia. Now compare that to, say, for example, if you go look at how much a Samsung S8 Plus costs, you can get them for now around 800 Australian. Retail was like 1,200 or 1,300, something like that. So you can actually pick them up cheaper than what you would sell an iPhone for secondhand. So you can buy brand new Samsung now, S8 Plus, for less than a good condition 7 Plus iPhone. Check it out. It's real. Now, things I love about it, I do love the touch sensitivity. That is the best touchscreen on a phone. Just how fluid it is, how sensitive it feels. When I go back to the 8 Plus, I can notice it's only slight difference, but I can notice the sensitivity is just not as good. It just doesn't feel as fluid. With this one, it has 120 Hertz touch sensitivity. It's not a 120 Hertz screen, it's a 60 Hertz screen, but the touch sensitivity is 120 Hertz. And if you've ever gamed and used a 60 Hertz versus 120 Hertz screen, you know the difference. And I can feel the difference going back to any other phone. So I love that. I love how sexy it is, how it feels in the hand. It feels expensive and premium, and it just has that certain je ne sais quoi. It just has that certain something. It really does have the X factor, part of the pun there. The camera is the best camera on a smartphone. I'm reviewing the Pixel 2 now, and yes, I would say the Pixel 2 has the better quality in terms of image quality, and it has the better video stabilization, but overall it has a better camera, the iPhone, because it has those dual camera focal lengths. I know there's Samsung phones that do as well, and the Samsung camera is awesome as well, but just being able to film 4K 60 frames per second, 240 frames per second at 1080p, and having those two focal lengths, the portrait mode works well, and nothing compares to the iPhone's back camera when it comes to portrait mode. It's a photographer's dream. Now, it's never going to replace your SLR, but I think overall it just has the best camera of any smartphone. The display is awesome. There are problems with it. I will talk about those later, but just how it's calibrated, the color reproduction is perfect. It is so sharp. It is beautiful. You see it outdoors. Probably the best display on a smartphone, maybe. I know the Samsungs get a bit brighter and they pop more, but actually I do like the iPhone 8 Plus's display. I'll get onto that later, but it would have to be top 2. It's up there. The display is awesome. I do like how they've got rid of the home button, but what they've used to replace it, the Face ID, I'm not feeling that. It doesn't work properly all the time. I'll get onto that when I come to the negatives, but I will say that getting rid of the button and starting to use gestures is the right way to go, and that's how Android phones have been for a long time, and that's why I like the Android phones, and I love the back button, and I just love using gestures rather than the clunky home button. But I do like Touch ID though. And I guess this takes me on to what are the negatives? What possibly couldn't I like? And it's that friggin' Face ID. Apple put all their eggs in one basket, okay? And it's flawed. It is flawed. It fails more than any other lock-in system I have used. It fails much more often than Touch ID. It doesn't work in certain situations. If you're outside and the sun's right on your face, it doesn't work half the time. And then there's the sunglasses. I wear Persol sunglasses. They're the best sunglasses you can get. We're talking James Bond, Steve McQueen, movie stars. You can buy Ray-Bans or something like that, most likely mass-produced in China. Persol sunglasses, handmade in Italy. Quality glass lenses with the best coatings. Anyone that's interested, I will leave a link in the description to those glasses. And in actual fact, I think you can tell how high quality your sunglasses are by if you can log in with Face ID or not. I cannot log in with these Persols no matter what happens, unless I go in and change the setting to turn off awareness. Basically, that just munts your security, just makes it much less secure. And also, I read an article, what was it, yesterday, that they've already hacked it by using a mask, so how secure is it anyway? And even when I turn off attention, half the time it will still not work. So it's a big issue for me, and it lags. It's not as fast as Touch ID. When you use it, sometimes it lags a little bit. If you think you're just going to pick it up and just swipe up and then you're in all the time, no, that's not going to happen, okay? I will say, most of the time that happens in the good situation, good light, inside, whatever, most of the times that does happen. But it does fail more than any other system I've used, and it's nowhere near as fast as Touch ID. I slide up, and a lot of the times I have to wait. Whereas with the fingerprints, just boom, 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 just in every time. I would say Touch ID is twice as fast as Face ID. And sometimes when I open it, I get a touch of lag. So that can be fixed with software. It would be nice if Apple had a fingerprint sensor where the Apple logo was or something like that. Then I wouldn't complain. I'll just be like, I'll just use the fingerprint, fine. But Apple have put all their eggs in this one basket. It's an imperfect solution. It's a flawed system. And you mark my words now, okay? You mark my words right now. Guarantee next year, Apple's keynote, when they announce the next iPhone, and I do think they'll bring out a Plus version as well, which is one of my gripes about the size of the screen as well. I'll get onto that. And I definitely think they will say Touch ID in this new iPhone X amount of times better than the last iPhone. And that's just because this is first generation. They sort of rushed it out, and I would expect it to get better with software over time. But I think there will be improved hardware in the next version of this, and it will be X amount times better. Then there's the next thing, the battery life. The battery life it's good. It's okay. If you compare it to an iPhone 8, it is good. It lasts longer than an iPhone 8. How does it compare to the iPhone 8 Plus? It doesn't compare, okay? We're talking hours of extra battery life you get with the 8 Plus. You would expect that with the big phone, but it is a bit of a disappointment that it's not a bit closer. I mean, at the end of the day, generally I'll be around 25 to 40% on the iPhone X. With the iPhone 8 Plus, I'll be anywhere from 40 to 60%. So there is a big difference in battery life, and it will get you through the day mostly, but if you use it a lot, you use the camera a lot, you game or view a bit of content, that will deplete the battery very quickly. And I know that when I was playing with the emoji with my son, I was only playing for like, I don't know, 20 minutes with emojis, and it just chewed through the battery, and like I had to charge that like 2 p.m. or something like that. So the battery life it's okay. It's above average, I would say, but going from the 8 Plus, it is a bit of a disappointment. Also, it gets hot. Now, I know why it gets hot. If you've seen the teardown of the Apple iPhone X, you will see that its logic board or its motherboard has actually been folded over. So it's actually not just one piece. It's actually been folded over and put on top of each other. So I think that's where the heat comes from, because certainly the 8 Plus is not as hot as this. It does get a little bit warm, but the iPhone X is a lot hotter. That's a cool piece of engineering, but the problem is it gets warm, and we had a really hot day yesterday, and it's a hot day here in Melbourne. And I was just kicking back watching some YouTube content. It was pretty warm in the house, and I didn't appreciate having like a lump of coal in my hand. I mean, yeah, okay, that's an exaggeration, but I was already hot, and I didn't need a hot phone in my hand just from watching YouTube videos. I understand if I game, yeah, all right, it's going to get warm, but I don't expect the phone to get hot when you're watching YouTube, and hopefully they fix that in the next gen. Now, there are some like software issues. Just if you use the old phone, things used to happen without fail. Like if you were multitasking, it used to happen every single time that you double pressed, and when you double tap, the icons would come down for accessibility. Those sort of things, they don't 100% work all the time with this iPhone, and especially as you've got to put your thumb right down the bottom, which then makes you have the phone in your hand lower, which then makes it harder to reach the top. So in some ways, it's much more fluid using all these gestures, but in other ways, it's become more cumbersome because you're having to do more hand gymnastics to actually use the phone and going from the top to the bottom, and it's just something you need to get used to. And the display is so tall as well, so it's hard if you're trying to reach the bottom all the time. One-handed use is really hard, and it really is a two-handed phone even though it's so small. So it sort of defeats the purpose of getting a small phone, other than it doesn't fill your pockets so much. Now, when it comes to the display, I think this is probably one of the best displays on a smartphone, other than I actually think the iPhone 8 Plus has the best display because it's big, the colors are more accurate. I mean, a lot of people are throwing around, this is the most accurate display on a smartphone. Well, in actual fact, if you go to Erica Griffin's video, or even if you look at DisplayMate, and you want to use the argument, this is the best display because it is the most color accurate, actually the 8 Plus is more color accurate. It is closer to 2.2 gamma, which is pretty much perfect amount of gamma. The iPhone X is closer to 2.3 gamma, and also it's just a shade off what the iPhone 8 Plus is in terms of color accuracy. Check it, I'll leave a link in the description. Check out Erica Griffin's video. So if you want to use that argument, it's the best because it's the most color accurate, well, the 8 Plus is more color accurate. So if that's your argument, you have to say the 8 Plus is better. I think it's better just because it's bigger. I see 16:9 content better. Now, if you don't watch a lot of content on your phone, then maybe the iPhone X display is better. Yes, it is sharper, a bit more contrasty, and it pops a bit more than the LCD on the 8 Plus. But it's not night and day difference. It's only marginally better in terms of sharpness, contrast, and just the amount of pop it has. So in actual fact, I do prefer the 8 Plus. Bigger display, much wider. You see your 16:9 content, how it's supposed to be viewed. You watch movies on the iPhone X and things look small and dinky. Yes, you can zoom in to fill up the whole screen, and then you've got the notch on the side, and also then it's zoomed in, it's cropped. It's not how it's supposed to be viewed. So I never do that. And when I pinch in to zoom it down, it looks very small. So hopefully they bring out a Plus version next year, and hopefully has a fingerprint sensor, and then this would be the absolute best smartphone ever if they'd done those two things, because obviously the Plus would have the better battery life, and I don't think it'll get as hot as well. So there's some things you have to know about the iPhone. It's a smashing product, absolutely brilliant, but I think you should wait for the next one unless you really want it, or you're just thinking of getting the 8, because this is much better phone than the 8. But if you're thinking of getting the iPhone 8 Plus, maybe hold off till next year or get the iPhone 8 Plus. I think at the end of the day, I'm going to stay with the 8 Plus and probably return this or sell it to someone else who wants it. I really do want this phone. I love it. I'd love to keep it. It needs another way for me to get in other than Face ID. That doesn't work when I wear sunglasses, or just needs a lot of improving. The battery life is not as good as I want. The screen is small and it just needs to be polished off a little bit more. And I think the second gen version of this is just going to be killer. It's going to be much better. It's going to have just a couple of subtle improvements that's just going to make the whole world of difference. And, you know, perfection is lots of little things done well. Well, there's lots of little things done well on this, but there's things that are not done so well. And that just stops it from being a really killer, like almost perfect phone. I said I'll do some Q&A. Is it worth $1,000 or $1,800 here in Australia? No, it's not worth that, though you do get great resale value on iPhones. So that's the only saving grace, I guess. Does the notch bother you? Not really, not in day-to-day use. But when I have to zoom in on the video, the cropping annoys me more than the actual notch. The notch doesn't even bother me that much, if I'm honest. How does it feel in the hand? It feels premium, it feels beautiful. I love it. It looks like the original iPhone. When you look at this silver model here, it is a piece of art. Performance over other iPhones, there's no performance difference between this and the iPhone 8 Plus. In fact, I'd say the iPhone 8 Plus performs better because it doesn't get so hot and the battery life is much better. Other than that, they got the same silicon inside, so there is no difference. Now, the camera difference between the iPhone 8 Plus and the iPhone X, yes, I do notice the difference with that optical image stabilization on the telephoto lens on this iPhone X. It does make a difference and it has a wider aperture. So you can get photos indoors with this that you can't get with the iPhone 8 Plus, especially low light and using portrait mode or zoomed in. You will get photos on this that you can't get with the 8 Plus. So that is a bonus there. And also the front camera is better as well. Battery life, I've covered the battery life. I say the battery life is fair. It's above average. I wouldn't call it good or great. It's just fair. That's all I can say about that. Display, how good is the display? Well, it is fantastic. It is one of the best displays on the smartphone, but I do think the iPhone 8 is better just because it's bigger. Its camera is close to 2.2, so, you know, it doesn't look as contrasty, but it is more color accurate, and the bigger size, I do prefer that display, even though this does look sharper and it pops more. But I mean, so does the Samsung. The Samsung looks brighter. It's not as color accurate as these phones, but it pops more. Pop is what you want. This phone is killer. Otherwise, the iPhone 8 Plus, to me, is a better display. Or I wouldn't say it's a better display. It's a display I prefer. How fragile is it? Okay, this is fragile. You drop this, you're going to break the glass. I strongly suggest Apple Care. I have already scratched it. I do not know how I have scratched this phone. Have no idea. I have the 8 Plus there I've had for, a couple of months or whatever, and not one little blemish or scratch on it. So they're supposed to be using the same glass. I don't know why it is scratched. Could have just been a bit of pocket dirt, like sand in there or something. Who knows? Would I recommend this over the iPhone 8? Yes, 100%. If you can pony up the extra dollars. The only downside you'll have is that Face ID, the issues with the sunglasses, or just it's not as fast as Touch ID. Other than that, it's just a much better phone, better camera, better battery life. The display is bigger, so just win-win-win. Just get the iPhone 10. I'll ask myself a question. Should I buy this now or wait for the next one? In this case, I will definitely wait for the next one, unless you have to buy now. You got a contract now. If you're thinking of purchasing the iPhone 8 Plus or you're a Plus user, I would definitely wait until next year. Hopefully they have a Plus version, better battery life, bigger display, and that would be like almost a dream phone for me, especially the battery life and the display. That would be a dream phone for me because battery life and display are probably the two most important things to me, especially battery life. Given that pretty much every flagship is awesome, battery life really means a lot to me. So I guess I'll wrap it up there. You can ask me any questions there in the comments. I will answer them. And thank you for watching. If you made it this far, you're a legend. Catch you in the next one, guys. Bye.